don't want to delay anymore you hearing about the incredible adventures that you are going to set forth on today going forward into our great CAP program. For those of you that don't know me, I am Liesl Riddle. I'm the Associate Dean for Graduate Programs here. I'm also a Professor of International Business, and I happen to have the great fortune of taking one of the very first group of students on CAP a decade ago. This is the picture from that class. It sits in my office for those of you that have been in there. It has a prominent space in my office because this is a very special class to me. CAP is a very special program. It's more exciting and interesting than I could have even possibly imagined even after teaching here for so very long, because there's something very special that happens when you take a group of really wonderful people who care about the world and care about seeing how business is used to make the world an even better place, and go out on an adventure together and work under stress and strain and excitement to create something truly meaningful for your clients and make an impact. What's so special about this class for me, I've taught lots of classes here. I've been taught here for 17 years. This class, because of what we went through together as a community, we are still all very tightly connected a decade later. People in this picture still write me regularly when they see something happen in the apparel industry, in Turkey, or when they're managing a crisis, because that's what we were focusing on, crisis management in the apparel industry in Istanbul a decade ago. They still write me. We're connected on Facebook. I see that they're sharing stories about marriages and families with one another, and they more deeply understand the world that they're involved in. CAP is a special experience. It's particularly made special because I think some of our most unique, globally connected, and creative faculty choose to teach in CAP. This is not a course that faculty are told to teach in. They volunteer to do it, and they compete for it. Did you know that they compete for it just like you compete to get into their classes? They're selected on their creativity, on their robust curricular design, but also the way they utilize their global social network. You're going to be able to take advantage of not only their incredible experience and depth of knowledge and hands-on training, but also the people that they know. And that's the thing you will remember the most. You will remember the most, I think, from your experience, the people that you meet and the way they transform the way you think about the world and your place in it. So I thank all of you for coming here. I particularly thank my colleagues, my faculty colleagues, who have taken the time to create these wonderful experiences for our students. And most of all, I thank our staff team here that makes all of this possible. So without further ado, I'll step aside so that you can hear about the great adventure that does await you. And I can't wait to see you when you come back and hear all about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Liesl, for that inspirational opening remarks. Really appreciate it. So thank you so much. Guys, my name is Patty Garcia. I have talked to you all. I can't believe it was already August since C-Suite happened. So I feel like the semester has been going by really, really fast. It's nice to see you all again. Clearly, I am not Sarah. Sarah would normally be up here. She's actually on maternity leave. We have a new member of the GNEE family, a little baby boy. So congratulations to her. And I'll be just stepping in for her here. To give you a reminder, this session will be recorded. So if you have, any kind of particular questions, or you don't need to basically take furious notes, because we'll have this for you, especially when you're completing your application, to refer back to if you would like. So I'm going to go over what we're going to cover today. It looks like a lot, but the first couple of items are just administrative that I'm going to go over, give you kind of what to expect related to CAP. Then I'm going to hand it over to the main event, which are the faculty, who are going to present on their CAP and the related projects. There will be 10 minutes of presentation for each of our faculty members, followed by 5 minutes of question and answer. And then just one final note, if you have any administrative related questions related to CAP, just hold them till the end. I'll try to answer them as best as possible. As Marie said, though, we are tight on time, so we need to be out of here at 1:30. So feel free to email us if we run out of time and can't answer those administrative questions. So this is the schedule for the spring for CAP. You already know all the locations and the professors, but they're listed here. As you can see, the timing is the same for Mondays, and it will, the room locations are here as well. In terms of the in-country portion, you'll be in-country for 2 weeks. It'll be a very fast-paced, intense experience. You'll be going on cultural visits. You'll be going on client meetings. And also we'll try to engage alumni while you're there as well. So, this is simulating a real live client engagement. So it will be very packed and intense. If you want to have, kind of time to explore the city that you're going to and the destination that you're going to, we encourage you to do that afterwards if your budget and time allows for that. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the GNEE role for CAP. First of all, we are involved in planning and operations throughout the year to make it happen for you. Secondly, we are going to be in constant communication with you about action items related to CAP, and that will happen monthly starting probably this month with some really important action items. You also have a CAP checklist that you should have gotten when you checked in, and that lays it out all for you, basically non-academic tasks that are important to take care of. We also provide visa support paperwork for anybody that might need a visa to the destination that you're going to. One thing to note on this is we ask for you to give us your passports as part of your CAP application. This is really important because the passports are required for some of this visa paperwork, namely hotel letters. So please give us your passports, because if not, that could hold up visa support paperwork for our other students. We will also provide guidance on travel logistics and health and safety a little bit closer to when you leave in March. So to talk a little bit about finances, what's included in your LUM tuition is basically anything that we've arranged on your behalf. So that's in-country accommodation, group transportation, group meals, and cultural activities. And then what's not included is anything that is not part of that package. You'll have to pay out of pocket for. So that's things like airfare, non-group meals, any entry fees, and immunizations. And then if you're on financial aid and need to request additional aid to cover the expenses related to CAP, you can ask for a support letter from us, and we'd be happy to provide that to support your request with financial aid. I'd also like to mention the Lucia Scholarship. So this is a scholarship that was established to commemorate Dr. Rafael Lucia, who was a really beloved colleague of ours and was actually one of the first CAP faculty leaders. There will be two $1,250 scholarships that will be awarded to CAP participants that apply. And so here are the essays. It's a little bit small, but we just wanted to give you an idea of what the essay questions are. It'll be an optional question on the CAP application. So feel free to go ahead and fill that out if you'd like to apply for the Lucia Scholarship. Now I'm just going to go over the application itself so you have an idea of what it will be like. When you're thinking about the CAP and which one that you'd like to rank as your top choice, for example, there are certain things to think about. So first of all, is there a particular region that you're interested in that might lead you to one of the CAP? Is there sector interest that aligns with some of the projects that are offered? Also, you may have had one of our faculty leaders in the past in one of your classes that may attract you to one of the CAPs in particular. And then lastly, you want to also take into account how your academic and professional background may align with a particular CAP. So we'll do our best to place you according to your interest and your CAP application. And you'll be selected for one of your top 3 choices, that's for sure. That's a little bit of a joke there. So in terms of the application process, there are certain components. So the first and second are rankings. So you're going to, first of all, rank the countries that you're interested in. It's on a point system. So you'll have 100 points that you'll distribute across the 3 country locations. And the most points that you can allocate to one location is 50 points. Same thing goes for the project rankings. So there'll be the 3 countries with the projects listed underneath, and you will be able to allocate 100 points across the different projects per the cap. Then there'll be an essay portion where you'll be able to explain your rationale for your rankings, both for the countries that you ranked and then also the projects that you ranked. We'll also ask for some additional information like international experience, if you have any languages that you speak, resume, sort of the normal application questions. And then again, you'll be able to apply to the Lucia Scholarship as well. Then there are some pieces of information that are really crucial, which is medical information, passport details, and also any special considerations that we need to take into account for your travel to your destination. And so the application deadline will be Sunday, November 25th at 11:59 p.m. You have a lot of time to fill out the CAP application, so make sure to take your time. We won't be actually reviewing the applications until November 26th. So to give you an idea of next steps, we're going to open the application tomorrow, and then again, just the application deadline will be November 25th. The placements will actually be announced on December 20th. So at that point, you will know what your CAP placement is. The faculty members will give you some reading to do that will help you to do independent research on the country. You'll also be assigned Paul Friga's book, which you should all have now after your check-in. If you don't, make sure to flag one of my colleagues, Marie or Kay, to grab your book. And then looking ahead at the spring semester, this is basically a layout of the class schedule, seminars, and then also CAP-related events. The one that's most immediate and that I wanted to point out to you is our kickoff seminar, which will be on January 14th. Make sure to block out 9 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. on that day. It'll be our big kickoff for the CAP program. So some last items before I hand it off to the faculty. First, get or renew your passport. Make sure that you can travel. There's a passport office for U.S. citizens 4 blocks away, so there's no excuse for you not to do it right away. Then also just make sure that you understand your personal travel requirements, especially if you're an international student. Make sure to go to the ISO. Make sure you have your travel signature, for example, and also research the entry and exit requirements of your destination. And in addition, also explore vaccine requirements and recommendations for your destination. Again, communicate any needs that, or special considerations that we need to take into account. You can reach us by email, by phone, and then again, you have that CAP checklist, which really lays everything out nicely for you so that you can plan ahead. And lastly, make sure to clear your calendars for May 5th to 8th, 2019, which will be the CAP dates. All right, with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to the professors so that they can talk about their CAP projects. So, Ravi, if you'd like to go first, and then if everybody could also present their graduate administrative assistant, and then they can give a little brief introduction of themselves as well.
Thank you. Okay. You guys have all been eating, so that's intentional. Welcome to CAP here. Everything that Dean Riddle said about the faculty is true with respect to the other faculty. That would exclude me, so they're great. I'm the other one. So happy to report that. But so 2 out of 3 isn't bad, right? Pretty good. Gets you into the Hall of Fame. Also, travel tip, don't ever give anyone your passport. just trying to create problems for Patty. In any case, welcome. I think this will be a lot of fun. I think you have 3 great options here, so hopefully you all will spend some time thinking about what you want to do. I think the experiences will likely be very different, so hopefully that will help you make your decisions. They'll all be unique and interesting, depending on where your interests lie. Quick introduction. My name is Rodney Lake. We have our GAA. Why don't you come up now, Eve, and introduce yourself? Yeah, come on up.
Just a very quick introduction of myself. So my name is Yi, second year in MBA. Originally from Shanghai, so that's why you can guess why I'm here. And I went to Singapore project with Dr. Lake in this year, March. Yeah. I really like this course and learned a lot from him and his teaching. So I can promise that you will definitely enjoy your camp experience. And Shanghai is a very terrific city and area for you to learn and for you to explore. So if you have any questions when considering your locations about the CAP, shoot me the email at any time. Of course, maybe I cannot promise I know everything, but I will try my best to answer. So that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Very much appreciated. Obviously, Eve is going to be a great help for this. She traveled with us to Singapore last year, and she's from Shanghai, so that will be quite useful, I think, for our trip. Thank you, Eve, for agreeing to help us do this. Very much appreciated. So we have 1 out of 2 on our trip, which is good. So the odds are still in your favor here. So I'm a teaching assistant professor of finance. I think my title's changed again. Every couple of years they just mix it up, make it something fun and different. I also serve as the director for the GW Investment Institute. That's the umbrella organization where all of our student managed funds. I've seen most of you in our quant boot camps, and so you're likely familiar with me with unpleasant items already, so you know what to expect here. All right. This is just some of my experience. Currently, I do consulting outside of the university through the Benval Group. So we advise growing companies. So obviously that experience here is sometimes useful. Here's my other title, Teaching Instructor of Finance. I also serve as the Deputy Chair for the Finance Department. So if you have real problems getting registered for class, or something's totally messed up, it's very likely I had something to do with it, so that's my role there. And then, of course, the director of the GW Investment Institute. Past experience, a little bit about that. So most of my experience is on the institutional investment side, and so not a shocker that I'm looking after the Investment Institute. I helped manage the overall endowment at GW. Does anybody know? Who knows what an endowment is? Start there. What's an endowment?
It's essentially all the money that's captured by the school through fundraising, giving by alumni, and then it's reinvested into scholarships.
Exactly. And does anybody know how much the endowment is at GW?
1 billion.
How much?
Well, that was me. I said 1 billion.
Calvin, good guess. A little low. 1.73? Yes. I didn't check the 3 this morning, but yeah, you could be right. Yeah, about correct. Yes. So where did you find it?
On the
Nice. Yeah, well, it's pretty close. Wikipedia is pretty close. Yeah. Great. So exactly right. And so I started. This is now years ago, so I'll date myself. Bonnie Pierce, who's in the audience. I worked with her at State Street Global Advisors when I was first at the endowment. So that's I don't want to date you, but I'll date myself. That's many moons ago for me. And so, but great fun. I started at the endowment. We were about $550 million. I left that role when it was about $1.5 billion. I was a positive contributor to that performance, so very proud of that. So trying to be helpful for the university. And before that, I worked in the treasurer's office before the endowment was insourced at GW. One past thing that's not up here that's relevant for this type of work is I also worked for California Federal Bank in their portfolio management group and helped look after a $1.5 billion mortgage servicing portfolio. Who here knows what a mortgage servicing right is? One person, great. Thank you, Professor Cohen. So typically no one has any idea what these things are. And they're quite specific, but they can be valuable. And so I was in charge of, it was a publicly traded company, so I did the work on the 10Qs and the 10Ks for the valuations and bought and sold these rights in and out of the portfolio. And then also did the hedging for that, so interest rate swaptions and things like that. All right, I went to GW, and then I went to West Virginia Wesleyan for undergrad. All right, why China? So maybe that's the question you'll ask yourself when you're filling out your forms, right? Why would I ever do this? One of the world's oldest cultures, that's certainly for sure, right? And so out of the last 20 centuries, how many out of those 20 has China been the #1 economy? 13, 14, good guess. Any other guesses? How much? 19 is closer, 18. And so it's, for all of us, it's obviously newer that China is sort of resurgence in the world as far as the economy goes. But historically, this is not, at all new. And certainly they took a break with some other ideas, and now they're obviously roaring back. And certainly the economy has been nothing short of really fantastic growth. If you look at the growth of the economy over the last 10 years in China. They achieved that through a bit of a mixed political system. You can hardly say that China is fully communist, right? Even though it's run by the Communist Party. Certainly there, you could argue in some instances that they're far more capitalist than even we are in some areas, and then obviously not in others. And so it's an interesting system. Right now they're the second largest economy, depending on how you count that, but it is certainly growing, and it's a force to be reckoned with. And for me, why China? What's the next slide here? Before we get to the next slide, if you're interested in business and you're interested in finance or investing, it's very difficult to ignore China. And even if you don't think, okay, that's not a place where I want to work, or that's not a place where I want to be, it's that there's a super high probability that you're going to have to understand what's happening in China and how it may affect your business, especially if you're running a large business, if it's a global business in particular. So why China? I think, at least for me, that's why it's interesting. As an investor, if you don't understand what's happening in China, you're very unlikely to understand what's going on. Even many U.S.-based companies have their ties into China. This current administration in the White House is having their fun with making that a mess, and so obviously those supply chains and different things are all very intertwined at the moment. Okay. How am I doing on time?
Good. You have 10 minutes.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Okay. I have a tendency to talk for very long, so anyway. All right. What's the environment? There's this has caused some consternation through the administration here, right? There's a strategy for innovation, entrepreneurship, and obviously moving from a production society to a consumption society in China. So that's happening. There's clearly a lot of concerns when you're moving this fast. In particular, one that gets highlighted quite a lot and is worth noting is that there's many environmental challenges. When you grow that fast, it's very likely that the environment is probably not being respected in the same way it would be here or in Europe to achieve that level of growth. However, the Chinese government and the companies there for opportunities have to deal with that, right? It becomes an issue that has to be dealt with, and they are. The next thing is, labor rights. Obviously, as people migrate from the rural areas into the cities, how does that impact the economy and the culture? There's an aging population, so that's obviously with the one-child policy in place for a long time. That has made a very particular demographic in China that would be sort of unlike any other place in the world, right, because of a policy decision. And how is that going to impact business? How is that going to impact investment? How is that going to impact how China positions itself for the way forward? even though they have a large population, obviously it's skewed because of this policy. Unlike India, who has very favorable demographics, China has an aging population. So even though population-wise they're quite similar on total number of people, the demographics between China and India are very different. And so that's something that you need to understand, and we will need to understand about this. And then this is a common theme, I think, for many countries, including here in the U.S. There's obviously income inequality. So when the economy grows quickly, obviously there are people that participated and they're doing much better than they have, and it's lifted a lot of people out of poverty, but it's certainly, there's a danger in creating two classes, and certainly the Communist Party and the government in China is very interested in making sure that people get to participate and there's not civil unrest in the society as a result of that. And so, how do you solve that? And how do you solve that through business, right? Are there opportunities for businesses to help address not just this, but all of these issues? And what are the best business models? So some of these things, and I'll just stay on this for 1 second, many of the business models that have been adopted in China are business models that were built somewhere else, like here, and are used in China. So, and some of that is reinforced by the policies of the government. So, for example, who knows what Baidu is? What's Baidu?
Basically the Google of China.
Right. And so it's the Google of China. And why can that happen in this way? Or what's one reason? There can be many reasons.
Google at one point said they weren't going to go in because of censorship, so Baidu sort of emerged with the censorship in place.
Right. And so China regulates their internet differently than we do here, and so it gave rise to a company that is super dominant in China, in part because of this policy. Google's making its way back in now. We'll see how that goes. But I think most people in China obviously are using Baidu now. And that's just one example. But that's a business model that was effectively replicated in China. It's basically the Google of China, and that's precisely right. They make their money in similar ways. Another company, Alibaba. What's Alibaba? Yeah, a bit like Amazon, and it's even more of a combination like Amazon and Netflix and PayPal and all stuff together. So there's really interesting and exciting businesses in China. And who's heard of Tencent? Anybody? Who's not from China? Who's heard of Tencent? What's Tencent?
They're one of the investment, like a tech company.
You're broad enough to be accurate. You sound like a consultant already, so that's a good start. Like that, yeah. Well, who has WeChat? Okay, so we'll have to use WeChat. So we'll have to use WeChat when we go to China, as an example. So they're the purveyors of WeChat and WePay. So Alipay and WePay are the two dominant digital pay features in China, which is very common there, especially in the big cities, more common than here. We will not be able to have, sort of a Facebook WhatsApp group because that's blocked in China. So we will have a WeChat instead of a WhatsApp group. And so Tencent is the company that is the purveyor of this. And so Tencent is another sort of conglomeration of many types of companies, but business models that exist in the U.S. that are applied in China. So one of the things that's interesting is, can you find models that are unique to China? Can you find companies that are unique to China that then become global players? That has been more difficult in China. So China has not really had they're making a lot of progress, but they haven't had a global brand like Nestle or, Google outside of China, or, Apple or Nike. That's starting to happen, but they don't have many success stories on taking something that's uniquely Chinese and making it a global brand. And so that's also an interesting thing, and certainly the Chinese are interested in doing that, right? But how do you do that? And I think it'll be a great learning experience being there. So obviously they're globalizing in their own way, right? There are different rules that they abide by. There are different rules that they use. And then there's many different ways of doing business that are unique to China. One, obviously because of the political structure, and obviously they have a lot more weight now than they did even 20 years ago, right? And so the economy has gotten a lot bigger. They have a lot more influence globally. They're trying to influence more globally, right? China's putting a lot of money into Africa, as an example. Who's familiar with the One Belt initiative, right? And so Belt and Road. And so, this is to put influence across the world, right? Very intentionally. But, there are obviously benefits for the countries that participate in that, right? And so it's up to each one to decide. But it is a different way of doing things than it is here. Sometimes it can be very similar, sometimes it can be very different. But we think there's plenty to learn there. So industry and sectors here. Project sectors that may align with different projects. So this is Goldman Sachs. I think you guys have all heard of them probably. In any case, I think, who knows what Goldman Sachs is? I think everybody does. So it's a global investment bank based in New York City, but has operations all around the world, including China. And in this environment, it's very politically charged. So just as a FYI, this administration is not making our job any easier working in China, just as a heads up. But it will make it interesting. The probability that we'll have an interesting trip now is very high. The probability that everything goes to plan, is subject to some guesses. They're not making it easier, but they are making it more interesting for us. So one thing to note is many of these banks, including Goldman Sachs, are applying for getting 51% ownership, in their operations in China. That's happening now. So there's a lot of back and forth going on. There's a lot of consternation both on this side and on that side, particularly around what's going on right now. Tariffs, right? I mean, this is the news with China, and everybody is supremely focused on getting a deal done right now. And after yesterday, do you think the probability went up or down? I'm curious. Which way? Up. Why? Okay. Any other views?
I think the Democratic House likes the tariffs more than the Republican House does.
So you think they'll stay?
Yeah, the House doesn't
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm just curious. Yeah. So in any case, it's not. It's certainly not without sort of differing views on what's going to happen right now, and with the sort of landscape changing each day. From one day to the next, yesterday to today, we'll see how that turns out. It looks like the market was starting to price in some favorable news, at least as of yesterday. All right, BPI France. I imagine no one's heard of here, but we have an alumni here. This is one of the reasons. And so they do private equity style investing in China, in the U.S., and sort of have a multi-country platform. And so we're working with an alum there on this. And so it's a multi-stage investment platform dedicated to supporting entrepreneurs, management teams, and their expansion. Work with companies that can benefit from an ecosystem spanning the 3 continents, Asia, North America, and Europe. And so very likely here we'll be working with some portfolio companies or working on the total portfolio. So it's a private equity firm, but it's a bit of a mix here. So it is a public bank, BPI France is, doing investments in China. And our colleague is a director, our alumni there is a director in Shanghai. EY, I think you guys have all heard of that. It's one of the big 4 accounting firms. We have some good connections here as well. And obviously, one of the big things in EY, I think you guys all know what that is. But really the opportunities here, so there's a lot of transaction advisory going on, especially cross-border things. And then, any of the service offerings, understanding what the market needs, what's demanded, and what's happening in China with respect to how business is changing rapidly. These are one of the, obviously the larger accounting firms globally. All right. So I think we have time though for questions. We have 1 minute for questions. I didn't understand the time. Sorry. So I've left you 1 minute for questions. Maybe you don't have any, but you can obviously feel free to round up with me afterwards. happy to answer any questions that people have. Any questions now?
Quick one.
Yep.
So these projects, are these like a 1,000-yard view of what the project be, and when we get there, we'll get in a bit more detail?
Exactly. Yep. Good question.
Seems like at least for the first two, finance background is pretty necessary. I guess can you touch on really quickly what I don't know if there's qualifications finance-wise or what.
Sure. So one qualification is you have to speak Shanghaiese. Is everybody okay with that? No? All right. Just Eve. All right. So Eve can go. Yeah. Right. My background is obviously finance and investing. So a lot of these projects are what's connected to me in particular here. However, that said, obviously we want to encourage people who have differing backgrounds to join, right? So that's a consulting team is made up of people with different backgrounds. So we're not going to screen on whether you have this background or not, right? We want to screen on interest, your ability to work hard, and do you actually want to do this? We can always find a way to get everybody activated in that group. So having a particular finance background can be useful as part of a team, but certainly we're not going to be screening specifically for people out of that. Good question. Any other questions? And I think that's my time. Well,
For people without a finance background that are interested in China, if there's one project over in Europe stick out to you as a benefit?
not really. I mean, they all have sort of a compilation of things, and so you'll be able to find a spot in any one of those. I mean, probably EY maybe would be one there, but okay. All right. Thanks very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. Excited? Good. Well, that was my job. I'm Dr. Tom Gertz. I will be taking a select group of you to go to Berlin. I have. It's good that you thought that was fine. It was not even on purpose a joke. So. I have done a number of caps here at GW. I've been to Mumbai, Buenos Aires. I did some steps. I went, which is a short-term abroad program. Went to Tbilisi, Georgia last year. And before that, I was at NYU. I did similar programs. But it is the first time that I will be going to Berlin on a cap. I have been to Berlin numerous times. In fact, I am an honorary professor at the Technical University of Berlin. And next week, I will be in Berlin giving my yearly lecture there. So I am well versed with Berlin. I speak German fluently, although the Germans will laugh at this point when I say that. The people that are going to be hosting your projects are people that I know personally. In fact, the CEO, actually he's no longer the CEO, he's the chair of the advisory board, was a groomsman on my wedding. So we are talking about very personal relationships. We are talking about a city that I well know, and I have experience in doing this. So I hope that sort of gives you an idea that you will be in safe hands when going here. Whatever, you can read this. This is my experience. I'm not sure how useful that is. So let's not go there. So why Germany? Germany is if we're talking about China being the second economy of the world, then I think that Germany I think is the third one, if I'm not mistaken. But if you're looking at the bigger picture, and you're looking at the European Union, which I think actually is bigger than the Chinese economy, this is like a friendly competition we have going on. Germany is definitely the economic engine of the European economy, and Berlin is its beating heart in that respect. from a political viewpoint, from a cultural viewpoint, it's really a fascinating city to go there. I think only Istanbul will beat that in terms of one of my favorite cities in the world, to be honest. It's a lot of, they have a lot of good things to go there. There's a lot of history. I love history, and if you know Berlin, there is like the old Nazi stuff is there, not good history. There's the old communist stuff there, again, not good history, but it's all there, and it's all mixed together. And it's really, really interesting to see that kind of stuff. Germans typically speak good English. They are very interested in Americans. The moment you will find out, they will want to know why no longer Obama and why Trump. This is a big thing for them, something that they do not understand. They really were happy with Obama. They're not so happy with Trump. I'm not quite sure why, but it's really. But they really will want to talk with you on these things. They are really interested. A little bit of, in that respect, of historical background. As you know, Germany was defeated in the Second World War by the Americans. And the Americans, and I know this, I've had a lot of talks with Americans. My first wife was German, and I talked a lot with her friends about that. After the Second World War, Americans really indoctrinated German culture to prevent something like the First and Second World War from happening again. And those teachers that were basically taught American culture, American way of living, taught the next generation. And it is a very American-oriented, I want to say indoctrinated, 2-3 generations that you can encounter. Yet the generation that is growing up right now, after the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989, is a completely different generation. They are much more independent. They are seeing that Germany is no longer divided. They see Germany again as its own place under the sun, which is a scary statement. And trust me, I am Dutch. I am from the Netherlands, which has been occupied by the Germans, and I look at this with a little bit of apprehension, to be honest. And therefore, that's also why I think that the European Union is so important to keep in touch, because they need to be a part of a bigger picture. But to have that conversation with older generations and newer generations is really fascinating, and it's really educational for Americans also who deal with a culture at the moment that has a very divisive situation. And if you're not American, it's important too. But for Americans in particular, I think you will learn an awful lot about how that works in Germany. And that's one of the reasons why I'm really looking forward to bringing students to Germany for that particular experience, because it's really important to understand what they have went through and how it is changing at the moment. So enough about that, I think. But again, if you want to talk more about that, I'm happy to do that. But it's definitely when we go there, you'll see more of that. The business environment, you will find that the Germans are still very much hardworking. They believe in punctuality. I also believe in punctuality, for that matter of fact, when you come into my class. They're not warm or close. It's not their way of doing business. It's very hierarchical in a way. The stereotypical behavior that is correct to a large extent. In fact, it will take you a long time before you get close to them outside that. And again, I've been going there for a long period of time. But they're very reliable. They're very honest in their assessments. They're very honest when dealing with this. They take this serious. They will take your CAP project very serious. The moment that they committed to this, they will take this serious in that this is an important thing for them. You consider it to be important, they will consider it to be important. I I have this last sentence in there. They're not the level of rude honesty that Dutch people are known for. Like I said, I am Dutch. In my classes, I will give you very honest feedback, which is not always very much appreciated. I'm a very honest person in that respect, so I just put that sentence in there to give you a little bit of a sense of how I operate. I'll get back to that too. So, the projects. First, there's GATEC. GATEC deals with renewable energies, and they have what I think is a very, very interesting project. They want to expand their operations into the United Kingdom. Now, with Brexit, they are faced with a completely new business environment. And again, this is a serious project for them. They want to do that. They want your advice, specifically your advice. They want your advice in this CAP project. Okay, how do we do that? What do we need to know? How are we going to take care of that? So it's a real, again, it's real for their business expansion to figure out what to do with this. It's project number one. Project number two, Picato. Picato has a number of stores. It's a small firm that they have a number of stores. We will be concentrating on their clothing stores. They have one in Berlin, two are in other cities. They are not a big brand, but they need to be able to distinguish themselves in terms of branding from the bigger other clothing stores, and need to be able to position themselves. There was a question earlier, like, is there something else besides finance? I am a professor of finance, if you quickly looked at that. This is a typical marketing, branding project. You will, as with all these firms, by the way, you will be dealing with the owner, CEO of the firm, who basically says, okay, we have some online presence. I don't know if this works. We have been scrambling to do all kinds of things. We need a comprehensive marketing plan to make this a success going forward, to grow or to do whatever we need to do next. Does that sound to make sense? The third one is, like I said, one of the people here is my groomsman. This is a very good friend of mine. Beos is a real estate firm, and Beos just made it. It's a real estate development firm. They take existing buildings and they refurbish them into new uses. They have just been acquired by a Swiss insurance company. Basically, the Swiss want to put capital in German real estate. At the same time, my friend stepped back from being the CEO and gave the reins to the company to the second generation. And he is now the director, the chair of the advisory board. Part of this is, this project is to analyze whether or not this whole new organizational structure makes sense. Are they ready to deal with the Swiss, so to say? Are they ready to deal with this advisory board where the ex-CEO is now sitting there looking over the shoulders of the new generation? So it's sort of very interesting to go through this company and have a sense of what is coming next. So this is organizational behavior, this is strategic management, that kind of stuff. My approach to this is, I am very hands-off. I have a TA, she had to leave, unfortunately. She was with me on step. She can tell you more about that. But if you ask any of the other students, I am a very hands-off professor. I let you make mistakes. I am not going to look over your shoulder what you're doing. On the other hand, I will be there whenever you need me. Whenever you run into problems, I will be there, and I have a long experience in consulting. I know what I'm doing, but I want you to learn it yourself. I am not somebody who's going to tell you, do this, do that, now do this. You can figure this out yourself. And how I see this world, how I see this class, it is for you to learn to make mistakes before you go in the real world, because there you cannot afford to make those mistakes. Again, I will not penalize you for those mistakes. I want you to figure this out yourselves. I will always be there to support you, and in an honest way in that respect. A lot of presentations with me. You will do research, you present to the class, you'll get feedback, you will guidance on where to go next, but you are searching your own way through this project. Does that make sense, everyone? I have the class presentation there, yes. My simple expectation is show up to do the work. That is what I promised the people in Germany, that you guys are dedicated to do this, and that is what I expect from you. That's what they expect from you. I told you that I've been abroad before. I've been to Buenos Aires twice. One of the biggest compliments that I get from this is that people have contacted me, clients have contacted me and said, can you come again next year? Because it was so useful, we want to do this again. And that is what matters to me. I want that client to tell me that this was useful, come again and do it again with another project. That is the biggest compliment that you can get, because that means that you did a good job. It is serious work, makes actually sense. 1 minute about, I get that sign in the back, so if you don't see that, I have that sign. About the things beyond it, I already said it's a fascinating city. On the weekend, between the two cities, we will go to Dresden, which is a fascinating city, also blown to smithereens by the Germans, by the Americans, by the way. There's another Picasso store there that you can watch, that you can look at. There's a beautiful cathedral that you can visit, and the best thing of all of that, if you're into that, there are beautiful wineries overlooking the city, where you can look at the city and have some great German wine and enjoy some relaxation during that weekend before you go into the second week where you will have to work again. And my minute is up. Questions? Either you guys are all asleep, or I did a good job and there's nothing to say. We're good?
Okay, thank you. Okay, good afternoon, guys. I'm Abdullah Hakyus. I will be leading CAP South Africa. I started doing CAP many years ago with Turkey, my home country. But for the last few years, because things are not going well back in Turkey, I had to discover some other countries and meet some new people. And so for the last 3 years, I have been doing my CAP in South Africa, in Cape Town, so my second home country in a way. I would like to echo actually what Liesl said at the beginning of this session. This is not your typical course, okay? In addition to whatever is required for a typical course, this course requires your heart, your excitement, because you're going to be in communication with people from another country, and you will be spending 2 weeks in another country. So all your 5 senses have to be in action in a way. So that's the best part of this course, in my opinion, and that's the best part for me to get involved in this course. South Africa is a fascinating destination for CAP, not only because of its sophisticated business environment as an emerging market, but also because of its diverse culture, rich history, and an unmatchable natural beauty that you find not only around the country, but also in the city, in Cape Town. It's one of the most beautiful cities on earth. Okay, just a bit of information about myself. I won't go into the detail, but my background is basically in finance and business. I did work for the public sector, private sector, as well as in the non-profit area. So I believe, my background covers a lot of things that we are going to be experiencing through this program. And since this is not a typical course, the GAA of this course is also very important, and that's why I would like to introduce my GAA, Tringa. Can you stand up, please? Who will be assisting me in this program. She's a second-year MBA student. I'm sure many of you have already met her. Thank you. Okay. There are many reasons why we are doing this in South Africa. It's the largest economy in Africa. It's highly sophisticated compared to many other emerging markets, and it's the S in BRICS. Have you ever heard of this term, BRICS? Okay, it's a general term used usually for large emerging markets: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. The residency is going to take place in Cape Town, but the first year I did this program in Cape Town, I did not include Johannesburg, in this program. And then I realized what we were missing, because Cape Town is not really representative of the country in general. It's not as integrated as some of the other cities. So last year, my second year, we included also Johannesburg. So we will be doing the same this year, and there will be a Joburg component, not only for sightseeing, but also we will have business meetings and visits in Joburg, so that you will have a better idea about the country. The country has all the challenges and opportunities you would see in a typical emerging market. Some of them are listed here. But at the same time, South Africa offers a very sophisticated business environment, as I said earlier, in terms of presenting companies that are more traditional, but at the same time world-class, highly sophisticated companies that can compete on a global scale. So some of the projects we will be doing are going to be in this component of the economy, with more sophisticated companies, maybe smaller companies, but they are in an area that is intended to compete globally, not just local companies operating in South Africa only. The 4 clients that we will have this year cover a lot of industries, from retail to health to technology, so I will give you more detail about those companies and projects that we will be doing with them. 2 general observations about the clients. First of all, they are rather small companies. Some of them are startups. My experience in CAP is that dealing with smaller companies, smaller clients, is better for this program, because they are looking forward to the recommendations that will be coming from you guys. They cannot afford paying a lot of money to professional consultants, so they truly look forward to get something that they can benefit from these programs that we are offering them. So in that regard, they are eager to provide as much information as you would be asking from them, and they would be engaged in this process genuinely, because at the end of the day, they expect to get something out of this exercise. So in that regard, I'm glad that we came up with these 4 companies that are seeking your contribution to their ongoing challenges at the moment. So the first client, Jambi, is a non-profit organization operating in healthcare, health information systems, in fact. By the way, you'll be getting a more detailed explanation of the clients and the projects. Because of time and space constraint, we cannot provide too much information about the projects, especially here. So don't get confused. You will get much more information, including the expected deliverables, so that you will have a much clear idea about the projects. So what Jambi is looking for is they want to optimize their existing business models. So they are seeking some ideas from the team that will be dealing with this client. The second client is Sealand Gear. It's a funny company and set up by 2 surfers, very funny guys, and they basically produce some bags and other consumer items from upcycled material. And they have, great products. Every time I have been to Cape Town so far, I would take, my students to their workshop store and to get to hear their, story, but also to do some shopping there, because they have an excellent business model. They only employ, black people, and there's a concept called broad-based black economic enterprise concept in South Africa, which is intended to provide employment to black people and increase the income level, so they get some incentives from government at different levels depending on what you do, how well you do. So they are in a way also contributing to the society by employing black South Africans, and the unemployment rate among blacks is very, very high, especially youth unemployment is over 50% in South Africa. And the project they would like to do with us is an expansion, international expansion project. They want to expand into Europe and Australia and US. So the team will be dealing with expansion to Scandinavia, UK, and Germany in Europe, and Australia and US outside of the EU. The third client is Wala. It's a financial application, in a way, financial services application, a fintech company, which is currently offering a lot of services, from payments to shopping, so many things you can think of from fintechs. And they want to identify additional revenue streams. So they're looking for new areas to explore and to expand to. So again, they are eager to get your ideas as to which way they can go in expanding their business. The last client is VoiceMap. This is a publishing platform, an app actually, which is providing location-aware audio walks, drives, and so on, so many things. I did use their app to take a tour in a very nice part of Cape Town called Boca, it's a GPS operated system, so once you start it, it guides you through the streets, through the buildings, gives you explanations, and so it's a wonderful app to use when you're visiting a place you don't know very much. And most of the time you hear from a local about this particular area. So it's not only the dates or names, but also stories behind some of the buildings, some of the things that happened in that particular area. And their business has B2C and B2B components, and they want to again expand their B2B component of their business, and they're looking for some ideas, and they especially would like you or the team to compare Cape Town and DC in that regard. Again, you will find much more information in the document you will be receiving, I believe, this evening, right, Mary? So these are the 4 clients and 4 projects. This is, I agree with Tom, that's also my style, hands-off, because this is a kind of self-guided course. You are expected to deliver a consultancy project to the client. Of course, we are going to be there to guide you, to give you feedback, to help you with any issue you might have, but it's basically a self-driven course. But that doesn't mean that you will be all alone. Sometimes our expertise may not be enough to maybe respond to some of your challenges, but then we will be able to find some outside experts who can provide you the kind of information or guidance you're looking for. And I expect my students to not see this exercise as something that consists only of coming up with a project report and a presentation to the client. It involves lectures, guest speakers, and during the residency especially, a lot of company visits. We are not going to be spending our residency to just spend time with the client and finalize our recommendations, but also, or more importantly, we will be visiting many other organizations, companies, to be able to get a better idea about the business environment of the country, and sometimes we will be visiting competing companies so that you get a different perspective about this particular industry that you're dealing with during your projects. So you really need to see this as a much broader, much more rewarding experience, exposing you to another country and culture. And in this regard, really, I expect, again, my students to try to understand the business environment of the country, the cultural environment, the political environment. This is particularly important in a country like South Africa, in emerging markets. You cannot isolate business from its social and political environment. So in order to be able to provide effective recommendations to the client, you have to understand the context. So it's not only for your project, but also it's a lifetime experience for you all to go to this country and to get to know people from that particular country and be able to spend time there, enjoy their food, their music, and their sightseeing locations. So it's an exciting experience, and I believe South Africa may not be as important as China or Germany, but it's much more fun being in South Africa. Thank you. Any question? I think we don't have much
We
time.
just have maybe like 1 minute. Yeah, 1 minute for questions.
Okay.
Yeah, we have to.
You can always email me if you have any specific question about the program or the projects.
Sounds good. Okay, great. Well, thank you very much, faculty leaders, for sharing about your programs. And Marie will be sending out an email to everybody once the session is up for your access. And we'll also be sending a notification once the applications are open. So thank you, everybody, for your attention. Hope you have a great rest of your day.